What's up, family? Thank you for tuning in to the DreamNation podcast. My name is Casanova. I'll be your host, and I'm excited to be bringing to you entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers from around the world. Stay locked in with us because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. Do you love a story of someone who just continuously perseveres through all odds? I can tell you, I know that I do. And I love it even more when it's a strong woman because I know the plight that's normally on their shoulders. And in today's episode, that's exactly who we have on the show. We had the great Miss Tonya Rapley. And Tonya is not only a successful multiple business owner, but she's also a mother, and she continues to defy the odds in many of lanes, coming from domestic abuse, coming from losing everything on her first business, to now being able to conquer anything that she wants. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. What's up, Dream Nation? We are back again with another episode. And this one right here, I'm excited for because we are going to dive into how do you become the best version of you and how do you become unapologetically you. So I have someone on the show today that I think is going to give us all of the wisdom and the insight so we can take that imperfect action as we all need to. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my sister, Miss Tonya Rapley. Tonya, you want to go ahead and say what's up to Dream Nation?
Hi, guys. No, hey, Dream Nation. What's up?
What's up? What's up? So excited to have you on here. And the way that I always like to do this is I always like to make sure that I give the proper introduction to each and every guest. And the way that I do that is that I compare us as entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and change makers to superheroes. And the reason being is because we're constantly putting on a cape, we're flying around the world, and we're trying to solve the biggest problems. And so behind every Superman or Superwoman, we know that there's a Clark Kent. And so my question to you is, behind the Superwoman of Tonya Rapley, who is that Clark Kent?
Oh, this Clark Kent doesn't necessarily have a name though, right?
No, it doesn't have to have a name. Who is that person?
Oh, just someone who is really committed to being good. Someone who is committed to being good, embodying principles that our ancestors would be proud of, and operating with integrity. Integrity is critical and important. And then being true to the Gemini that she was born to be.
I love it. Now, for you, it looks like for anybody that's going to check out the business and the brand that you've built, it looks like you have it all made. Was there ever a time that you struggled early on? And are you living right now the goals, the dream of where you thought you would be? Let's even just say 5 years ago.
Oh, that's I think struggle is relative. And it is also how in which you define it. Definitely have been through some adversity. People who know my story know that my Fab Finance essentially was founded out of the result of an abusive relationship that was financially and physically abusive, and definitely had to overcome that. And it played a big part in why I started my Fab Finance. But then as I started it, I realized that healing was important. And my Fab Finance has allowed me to heal as well as continue to go through therapy because I'm also very transparent on my Instagram. Like, I deal with things. I've gone through things. I realized I had control issues last year, and control because it made me feel safe and just like really wanted to mitigate like any issues or anything like that. So yeah, even as an entrepreneur, so am I where I thought I would be 5 years from now? Yes and no. Yes, because I knew that I had what it took to build a successful business. Yes, because I knew I wanted to be the mother that I wanted. I knew I wanted to be a present parent. I knew that I wanted my family to dictate my schedule instead of the other way around, because I grew up in a military household and my parents were always having to choose their job over us. And I didn't want my children to feel like that. I didn't want to feel like that I had to make a choice. But no, I don't think I ever I knew I wanted to feel the way I feel, but I didn't know what that felt like until I felt it, if that makes sense. Yeah. I knew I wanted to have freedom and clarity and just feel like I was just calling my own shots, but I hadn't seen it before. So I didn't know what it felt like. I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know what it felt like. And that can be hard because then how do you know when you have got what you wanted? How do you know, like, how do you know when you are satisfied? And that's been some of the work that I've been navigating through therapy and so forth. Because as a go-getter, Casanova, it's like you're never completely satisfied. You're like, oh, okay, then next, then what's next, then what's next? Instead of sitting and celebrating yourself. And so it has been important for me to honor where I am, honor where I came from, but then also honor what else I want out of life and where else I want to be and what else I want to do. And yeah, so it's yes and no.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the transparency. The first thing that I want to tackle is you said you grew up in a military household. So obviously there was a lot of structure there and they wanted it to be done a certain way. Do you feel like that allowed you to win? Because now you're an entrepreneur, which essentially there doesn't have to be a lot of structure that way. Do you feel like that growing up in a military household made you say, hey, when I get older and I get my own things, I'm not going to operate this way? Or do you feel like that really gave you the foundation of, hey, I should be operating this way because I've made it this far by having to operate this way?
I think that's a yes and no. That's one of the things we learn in therapy. It can be and or. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and or. And so I do think my military background did shape me saying, you know what, I don't want nobody to be this. It made me rebuke like structure. Even when I had a 9-to-5 job, like they already knew Tanya's probably gonna get here late. She gonna do her work when she gets here, but she might be like an hour late. My boss would be like, are you coming in today? Like, yeah, I just had to move my car. Like just and so I knew I didn't like structure or someone else's structure, but I'm a disciplined entrepreneur with regards to I do what needs to get done, but sometimes I'm not always the most disciplined with my time, but I am self-aware. And I think that that's important as an entrepreneur. I think discipline is important, but self-awareness and like being able to pull your own card and call yourself out and be like, you're not operating at your full potential. And I think that came from my military background too, because my parents always held me accountable. Like my dad was the type of parent, I'd be like, in high school, I had a job. I ran track and field. I was in honor classes and everything and still in the honor roll. And I'd be like, I got peers who so-and-so, they don't do none of this and they still failing out. And my dad was like, you ain't them. Like, I don't expect nothing out of them, but I expect something out of you. And I was raised with expectations. And so I have expectations for myself. And like anybody who's in my life, I have those same expectations. And I think that has served me well as an entrepreneur. That decision of my parents, like to teach me time management skills at an early age. Because for me, it was, okay, how do I juggle going to track and field practice? How do I juggle going to work this week and knowing I have a track meet the next day? How do I juggle getting the schoolwork done? How do I juggle getting homework done after track and field practice and knowing that I still need to stay on the honor roll so I can get this scholarship? And being able to juggle made me more comfortable. So when I built my finance, I was still in graduate school and it became like a condition rather than an excuse. And so I think that came from the military upbringing and so forth. But yeah, definitely a disdain for structure.
Right. Because you had and that was where the control came in, I would imagine later on, because you were like, listen, I don't mind structure, but I got to have more control over it rather than being in someone else's structure because I know what that's and I have no say in this and this is supposed to be my life. And then it comes with, hey, just trust me because look at all the things that I accomplished throughout my life, throughout high school, and I'm still doing it throughout grad school. And it feels like somebody's still trying to control me, even though I've proven myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right? That's kind of, give me a little bit of leeway. I'm going to be okay. And so I think that's huge. And I love the fact that what you said is early on, the expectations were set. And I think that's important, no matter how much you're present or not present with your child, is to set the right expectation because then they understand that there's always a standard that I have to have for myself, even when I'm out of your house.
Yep. There's a standard in which I operate. Yes. I've never heard it like communicated in that way, but it is. Even when I don't see you, there's a standard that I'm operating in because it's a standard in which I was raised by. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, and I try to do the same thing for my child, both of my kids, but definitely my son is to understand because he's old enough now. My daughter's almost 3, but my son, he's 9. He just turned 9. And so he's at that place where he comprehends so much. And we know that he's about to come into the critical years to where he starts to really think that he's grown. And we're just a couple years away from him trying to go get his permit and all these other things to where then they could be like, I got 4 more years and I'm out. And you got to have that standard because yes, even when you're out of here, you might decide you want to go abroad or whatever else, but how do you still have expectations for yourself? And I think that then probably, and I could be wrong, but I would imagine that's where the moment that you sat down and understood that your situation that you were in the first time with your significant other, that you weren't being treated the right way, whether it was financially, verbally, physically, all these things. But then you're like, wait, Tonya, I still got a standard for myself. Like, I got to get up out of here. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. In that relationship, it really was like, it boiled down to a lot of things, but it also boiled down to me thinking like, my parents worked too hard for me to throw my life away for this person. My parents, my ancestors, everybody worked too hard for like me to let this person derail my potential in my life and me to go down this hole with them. And even worse than for them to end my life. Like my life is too valuable. It's too valuable to my family. It's too valuable to those I love, to the people I'm going to impact for me to remain in this relationship. And that was the first time I chose myself and like really chose like my happiness and chose my joy and realized how important it is to do that.
That's so powerful. Now, the next thing I want to tackle is the next phase. You decide that you're going to go on this entrepreneurship journey. You really decide you're going to go all in on this and you're going to build a super successful business. What was that like in its first year, 2? Did it take you a long time to start to figure out how to really run a business? Or do you feel like you just had it from the beginning?
I definitely ain't have it. I definitely didn't have it. And there's still so much that I'm learning. Even to this, yesterday was my 5-year entrepreneurship anniversary, and still realizing and buying Club Lufa, which is an e-commerce business, there's still so much that you have to learn. Like now I'm learning about conversions and so forth. And yeah, there's still so much to learn. But no, when I started My Fab Finance, I would say it took me about 3 years to feel like, okay, you have a business here. This isn't by accident. It's, you know, you're being intentional about what is happening and your plan is working. It was about 3 years. But even then there's still ups and downs. There's like one day you work up, like, I'm killing this. And then like, you'd be like, I don't know if I need to go get another job. I might need to start looking like, pull my resume out, and maybe I'm not what I thought I was. So there's been times that probably has happened. I think this year's really been a solid year, even with the pandemic and everything. It's just been a solid year. Never was, but the first 3 years there were a couple of those, and at one point I definitely was putting in applications at jobs, and God was like, no, that's not it. You're gonna
suffer through this.
Yeah. Another thing I would ask myself in those moments where I felt like my business wasn't going the way I thought it should was, have you done everything possible to make it go the way you think it should be going? Have you exhausted every single option to make sure that your business is operating how you want it to? And the answer was always no. So the answer is no. It's like, okay, then go do those things that you should be doing that you're not doing. And when I would go do those things would turn around.
What do you think was, looking back on it, a brand new entrepreneur, especially a female entrepreneur, that right now she's, man, I feel like I got everything stacked against me, but I know that I have a great product. I know that I can serve my audience and everyone the right way. How in my first year can I overcome, like, what would be the tips that you would give in the first year? Is it just know exactly who your client is? Is it find a need in the marketplace? Is it go get you some funding? What does that look like?
Honestly, like identifying who your client is and finding the need in the market, that should be done before your first year. Like that should be done before you decide, like, I'm going to do this like full throttle. That's your market research, and you got to do that initially. I can't say that I did that with My Fab Finance necessarily, because it started out as a blog. It didn't start out as a business. It started out as a blog, but that blog was my market research because people started resonating with it. People started sharing it. Community started forming around it. And I was unintentional about that. I was like, oh, this is something that like women who look like me need. Like they need this resource. And so you should be doing that ahead of time. And then I think that your first couple of years in business require you to humble yourself and just do. One person told me the first couple of years is throwing spaghetti in the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Figuring out what works for your business, trying a few things, trying out like different options and so forth, trying out different revenue streams, just trying a few things and seeing what works, because you might have your heart set on one way of doing things, and that might not be the way that you're going to continue to do it. When I started, I thought I was going to do one-on-one coaching as a business model. Got in it, was doing one-on-one coaching. After the first year, I was like, nope, I don't want to do this. I do not want to do one-on-one coaching because it wasn't scalable. That I couldn't scale myself. And then I thought about trying to train other coaches and stuff like that. But I was like, going to back to that control thing, I was like, I don't know if they're going to like coach the way I would coach. They're going to be effective coaches. And now I'm responsible for the work that they do. Not, I'm not ready to take on that risk. And that first couple of years, it's trial and error. It is trial and error. Even now, I'm sure there's people who launched clothing businesses this year, and now they turn around and they're selling masks because a new demand has established itself. And so you just got to be willing to go with the ebbs and flows in the first couple of years in business and figure out what makes sense for you, what's sustainable, what's scalable, and what you enjoy doing.
No, that's so huge. And being able to shift and pivot with the opportunities, because if you're, and that's about, just like you said, what the need in the marketplace is, because you're like, no, I want to do it this way. I want to do it this way. Well, that might not be what people want to pay you for, or the need that they have, the pain point that they have. And so you can find yourself out of business real quick because you're not pivoting.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
How much was in your first couple years, how much was mentorship a factor for you? Did you find anyone? Because in the blogging space, it's tough because it doesn't feel like that there's a lot of people developing communities as far as mentorship in the blogging space. They're developing them for their tribes, but maybe I could be wrong. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, mentors came from a variety of places. And there was a point in my journey where I felt like I didn't have the support that I needed to grow. And so what I did was I set the affirmation. I wrote it down on my mirror and look at it every day. And it was, I don't remember it verbatim now, but it was something to the liking of, I have the support I need to grow my businesses. And I have a mentor who is invested in seeing me grow. And said that every day. And then I went to a financial bloggers conference and they match you with mentors. And I was matched with one of the most successful people at the conference. I remember everybody was like, how'd you get him? And so I was matched with him, and Chris mentored me probably for about the first 2 years, but he wasn't the only one. I joined a hands with women called the Frugal Fab. We called ourselves the Frugal Fab Five. So it was myself, Marsha Barnes of the Finance Bar, Tiffany Aliche, the Budgetnista, Kara Walker, Frugal Feminista. And then at that time, my Fab Finance, I had a business partner. And we were like friend tours for each other. We were sharing what was working, giving each other advice and everything, helping each other, giving each other feedback. This is what you should charge. This is what you shouldn't charge. So then I had a mentor group of friends, which called friend tours. And that was really helpful. Yeah. And each stage, there are different mentors that pop up. Now at Club Lufa, I bought the company and then set the intention that I was going to find mentors that I needed in the space. And I was able to find a few good mentors who are helping me along the way and figuring things out as I build that out. So I think for anybody who's looking for mentors, they are beneficial, but you also have to understand what you want out of that relationship, because most likely you want them as a mentor because it's something they've accomplished or because they're successful. Successful people don't always have time to mentor on a regular basis. So that mentorship might not look like, like the big brother, big sister type of mentor, where we spend a day together, we spend an hour together, we have a standing lunch meeting every month. It might not look like that. It might look like, hey, you got a minute to talk about this? I want to run something by you. Or it might look like an email. Let me send you something. Let me send you what I'm thinking about buying. What are your thoughts? It might be that. But so I don't want people to block off the possibilities to be mentored by others by what they think a mentorship would look like. Because I've had text-based mentorships at this point. So it can vary.
Yeah, I think that you dropped so much wisdom and nuggets in that whole statement. First thing was you put it on your mirror, you saw it every single day, and essentially you allowed your energy to bring to you what you needed because you didn't already have it, but it didn't allow you to stop taking action. You still kept taking action, and then you took action and went to the conference, right? Without the mentorship, probably with knowing very few people, right? That's one of the most powerful things about these networking conferences. When you go by yourself and then you find yourself getting breakfast or lunch and and things like that. And then you're like, before you know it, you leave out of there. You got so much energy, so much wisdom, but so many more connections than if you didn't go, because you're like, I don't know anybody there.
Yeah, right? Definitely.
So that's powerful. And then the other part is just like you said, like everybody's mentorship is different. So if you can I learned something and who was that? Shout out to Tiffany Aliche too. So she came on the show. It's like my sister, and she came on the show, absolutely crushed it as well. So shout out to the budget nista, as she calls it. But someone came onto the show, and it might even been her. No, it was actually Allison Bird. Do you know Allison Bird?
Mm-hmm.
So it was Allison Burden, and she gave some super nuggets, but she had said, everything that I do, it's in 15-minute increments, because just like you said, successful people don't always have 30, 45 minutes to talk to you because their time is super valuable and they're trying to run even bigger plays. They don't want to be held back or slowed down. So if you could just give them something that is digestible, sometimes it is just that text message. Sometimes it is just that email. And more importantly, for me, if like when people reach out to me, if you show me that you've already taken some type of action, just like you said, hey, here's what I'm thinking about buying. That means that you've already done your market research. You already know, and you have some plans of why you're going to buy this. And you're like, just give me your opinion. That goes so much further than just, hey, what business can I buy?
Right, Casanova. Exactly. Like being specific, because I have people slide in my DMs all the time asking questions about being in the finance industry, getting in finance. Hey, I'm thinking about starting a finance blog and would love some tips. I'm gonna need you to do more work than that. I'm gonna need you to research what area of expertise do you want to operate in personal finance? Example, a woman hit me up yesterday. She asked me about someone in personal finance. She's in personal finance. She asked me about someone who I work with as a coach. She was like, should I work with them? And it's like, okay, so I followed her around. I've seen she's doing the work. Her Instagram feed and everything. She's serious about what she does. So for me, it's like she's doing the work. I'm going to help her do her work, but I'm not going to do the work for someone else. If you haven't done the work, I got enough work to do. I can't do it for you. So yes, that here's my business idea, other than what type of business should I start? No, it doesn't. Mentorship does not work like that. It does not. It doesn't. not in 2020.
No, and even coaching, I would say then if that's the case, you really want to go get either a consultant or a coach. But even those, again, our time is so valuable. And I think it's becoming more and more valuable because as we see, like Chadwick Boseman, right? Like people that are dying so young. And so the perception that it at least always gives me and what resonates with me is that tomorrow is really not promised. It doesn't matter if you're 40, if you're 35, whatever, you just never know. And so what you got to do is you got to live each day to your fullest. Well, for me to live out that means I'm going after my bucket list all these. So if I got this text and now it requires me to use some brain power to try to figure out your situation. It's come on, I want to help, but I can't help those who don't want to help themselves. And so I hope someone listening to this, you don't take it as, hey, this person, they don't want to help me. It's just like, hey, let me show them that I'm already going to bat for myself. I'm looking for a hand up, not a handout.
Exactly.
Right? Hey, what's up, Dream Builder? Have you been getting any value out of this episode? Would you like to get more exclusive content just like this delivered right to your inbox? If so, head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com and you can sign up for the email list, and that will give you access to exclusive content and more interviews just like this that's going to be delivered only to our tribe. So head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com. Let's get back to it. So you've been starting multiple businesses now. Talk to me about, because for a lot of people right now, they're going through this pandemic, but maybe they got a little bit of money. Maybe they've made some money in the stock market or something like that. I feel like my whole timeline has now become, and it's crazy because I'm in real estate, not the financial world, even though they can intermingle.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but it's everybody talk about stock options and Apple and Tesla. But
especially because Apple split this week. Yeah.
Yes, everybody's on it. And so I'm just like, I guess my question to you is, for someone who is looking to say, hey, I want to start a business, but I don't know if first I should start investing or if I should start cutting debt first. What's your take on that? If they got student loan debt, medical debt, and they just don't know how they can get ahead?
So those things shouldn't stop you from starting a business, in my opinion. Those things, they shouldn't stop you from starting a business, because starting the right business could actually help you with those things. It could actually help you bring in more income so that you can achieve your financial goals. Sometimes that's all people need, is an additional way to bring in some revenue so they can attack their financial goals, because your job is not necessarily always going to be that route for you. So I think that some people should consider doing it despite having debt or despite not having savings. But in the same sense, I'm very big on savings are important. Like debt, I know it's so sexy and it's so satisfying to eliminate debt, but I always say prioritize savings over debt elimination, because you can't pay bills with your debt that's been eliminated. You can pay bills with the money you have in your savings account, but not the debt you've eliminated. And then when it comes to investing, I always just say, just don't invest money that you need. Like your investment money should be your play money. It shouldn't be, because you're not going to be a good investor if you're investing what you need. Like investing, especially if you're looking at stocks and so forth, that's a long-term game, unless you're a day trader and so forth. But most people aren't. That's a long-term game. You need to be able to stay in it and ride the waves. You need to be able to stay in it and could be confident staying in it when it's up, when it's down, and just like let it flow, instead of having to watch it because you invested everything that you had into that. There are different risks you can take that don't necessarily involve the stock market that you have more control over, such as starting a business. You have more control over that risk than you do what happens to the market. So if you're like looking and you're like, I just have to make this money grow some way, somehow, then do it in a way that you can control the outcome more likely than with the stock market or something of that nature.
Got it. Now, for starting a business, like how do you choose the businesses, like the two businesses right now that you have running? How did you choose those? Was there a couple factors? Is there some non-negotiables that you look for before anybody can get you to really say, I might purchase this business?
Casanova, like my Fab Finance chose me. Like I ain't choose my Fab, it chose me. So I can't really say that for that business. And I have been involved in previous businesses. There was a startup that I was co-founding named Foam with my partners. Actually, one of the partners out of Chicago. We decided to dissolve that. Felt like my expertise lent to a strong positioning with that business, but also realized like we didn't have the capacity needed, and there wasn't really a market fit for it. And when you realize there's not a market fit, you just keep going about your business. Like that's the beauty of like testing the market out before you go like all in. There wasn't a market fit for it, and having those conversations. And then the next one, I co-founded CanInclusive, which is a diversity inclusion platform in the cannabis industry. I decided to step back from that because it was starting to mess with my other money, because cannabis is still a Schedule I drug. And I work with a lot of clients in the finance space and so forth. Some of them were uncomfortable with me dealing with the cannabis space. And so I decided to step back, but it still has strong leadership in Mary Pryor, who is one of my co-founders, and they're doing a great job with that. But then I tried it again this past year with Club Lufa. Club Lufa is a company that I acquired. So rather than building something from the ground up, like I was attempting to do with these other businesses, I bought a business that was already in operation. And Club Lufa is a subscription business. And so it's a premium bath, sponge, and tool subscription business. We're expanding the product lines to basically include complete body care, taking care of everybody's body. And it was attractive because it was already in operation. It already had revenues coming in. I saw the need. I saw that they needed some more press mentions. They needed some more pushes on social media, and it needed to they needed to diversify and so forth. And it was I felt like I could bring something to that business, but also build out my business portfolio. So I ended up purchasing that business actually on the Shopify Exchange. Most people don't realize that you can buy businesses through the Shopify Exchange. It's a website. So what happens is, say like me being the owner of Club Lufa, I decide, you know what, this does not align with my life anymore. I got other things I want to do. This is just this was just a pilot project that I did, cool, ready to walk away from it. You can put that business up for sale so that other people can purchase it. There are literally hundreds of businesses for sale on the Shopify Exchange, some drop shipping businesses, some like businesses like Club Lufa where you do order fulfillment yourself. And I bought it from there. And that was another thing that I had been putting it out there, that I wanted to buy a business. I was doing my research. I wanted to buy a business. And one night my little sister was like, have a look at this. I think you should look into this. And she said, I think you could do something with this. And I was like, I think I could too. And 3 weeks later, after doing my due diligence and making calls to my mentors and asking, and I ended up buying it.
Wow. No, that's a nugget in itself. So I'll be honest, I never knew that you could purchase businesses on Shopify Exchange. To be honest with you, I've never even heard it. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh, she just gave away the gold right there. Cause that's a big deal when you're first thinking about starting a business, but you're like, man, I got to generate the revenue. I got to do all these things. There's no systems in place. I got to also create a team. I got to create the logo, the branding behind it. I got to get email campaigns behind it. So all these other things that come with it, which is overwhelming, especially in your first year. And especially if you don't know how to run a business and an online business at that. Yeah, that's a lot. And definitely. So that's huge. Now, for you, was there something about this business that made you, because now you start looking at the Shopify Exchange and I'm sure you probably see a couple different options. Mm-hmm. What was it about this business that said, you know what, this is the one I got to go with?
I saw the missed opportunities with it. And it was subscription. I love that when I bought it, the week I bought Club Loofah, it made money because it's subscription. We did not do anything. We just focused on rebranding and fulfilling orders for the first 3 months, and it still made money. That's why I bought it, because it was still a moneymaker. And at this point, I was looking at our profits. We're 30% up of what we paid for the business this year. And we had shut down for 2 months out of this year when the pandemic first happened. And we're still up 30% from what we purchased the business for. And yeah, that was why it was attractive. It already had customers and it was a subscription-based business. So it came with money.
That's what's up. Now, for you, was it a passion project, do you feel like, or did you really did you look at the numbers and you really just saw the profit?
I didn't go after the numbers like I probably would have now, like with the next business that I buy, and would probably ask a few more questions. But it wasn't a passion. It was definitely it was a power play. It was an understanding, like I've been operating in this finance space for so long. And one thing I do know is people gonna buy stuff. And so I knew I wanted an e-commerce brand because regardless, people are gonna buy stuff. And people like getting behind tangible businesses. They like posting and sharing things. I supported this Black-owned business. So, and this is what I got in my hand. Like they like doing that. And so why not put something like that in my portfolio too?
Yeah, no, I think that's solid. And I'm sure you have a lot of wheels spinning right now. Now talk to me about once you purchased this, did it come with any staff, or did you have to then, like the staff that you already had that was helping you with MyFab Finance, you said, hey, we're going to have a little bit of crossover, or what did that look like?
Initially, so the staff members that they did have, so they had a leadership team of 3 people. They decided that they didn't want to stay on. Like they were all interested in doing other projects and so forth. As far as the team that they had, so the company was based in Riverside and I lived in LA. Riverside is about an hour and a half from LA, depending on traffic. And so they decided she wasn't going to come along with the person they had doing like order fulfillment. And like they had one person on the team who was doing that. And that's all she did. And we decided not to bring her along. We actually decided to do order fulfillment ourselves for the first couple of months. And we're still doing it now that we moved because we wanted to understand where the areas of opportunity were for growth in the business and really get to know the business. And also the business metric wise, we're not at a point where I feel like it makes sense profit wise for us to outsource our fulfillment. And so the existing MyFab Finance team, when I first bought it, I did have an idea like, hey, so I bought this company. I'm just gonna need you guys to do my system. I'm like, I just need you to do some things. So I moved one of my social media people over from another company, from my nonprofit. I moved her over to focusing on Club Loofah and growing Club Loofah, the Instagram. But then over time, we're realizing that we need to bring in people who specialize in e-commerce. Just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean you're good at e-commerce, which is a completely different thing. So now we're in the process of doing that. And we work with a lot of consultants right now. Like we're not, even though we have consistent revenue, I'm not at a place where I'm ready to have like consistent staff in that business just yet, but I will bring in a consultant in a heartbeat and like pay someone to consult. We have 2 people who are consistently on payroll, and that is our graphic designer and our social media manager.
Got it. Now, so is the business still based out of California or now, because you've relocated to Atlanta?
Yeah,
right?
So it's based in Atlanta. Everything came with us.
Everything came with, it's so powerful. And yeah, I think for a lot of people right now hearing that, they can at least say, okay, let me make sure that I keep my expenses down until I feel like I'm at that point that, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that'll reach out to you to say, hey, I'm in that same situation. I'm thinking about relocating. Is there any tips? And so hopefully they've already done their homework. And when they reach out to you, something that's a little bit more concrete. This
Yeah, and
has been,
I just wanted to add to that and so forth. You're just really thinking about it. And on social media right now, it's so sexy for people to be like in their warehouse and their fulfillment center. And it's beautiful to see that scale, but don't push it if you aren't there. Don't push it if you aren't there, because for some people they'll rise to the occasion, but for some people that'll make them crumble because they're so stressed they can't even think straight, and they can't think about what's their best decision because they're stressed taking on all these things that they thought signified success but really didn't. And so like, just don't do it for the gram. Don't
do it for the. What has been the most challenging part for you jumping into the world of the e-commerce space? Has it, what has been the most challenging for you?
What the most challenging thing honestly has been personal. It has been, I did not completely pay respect to the time I had to create My Fab Finance versus the time I have now. When I created My Fab Finance, I wasn't married and I didn't have a child. Now I'm married and I have a child. I have two people who depend on me, and my son is 2 years old. My son don't care if I was up till 3 a.m. working. He's waking up at 6 o'clock and he's ready to get it popping. And I need to be ready to go for the rest of the day. And that was not how the conditions in which I created My Fab Finance under. So really understanding how to optimize my time and delegate and so forth, so that I can do what I'm best at and let people do what they're best at rather than try to figure it out. Because with My Fab Finance, when I first started it, I did my first logo, I set up my first WordPress site and everything. It was ugly, but I did it and it got set up. With Club Loofah, there's no time for the learning curve. It's if they know how, if someone knows how to do it, pay them to do it so you can move on to do something how to do, or something that you're interested in learning how to do. So I would say that finding the time has been probably one of the biggest challenges with growing this company.
Yeah. And just, I love the way you put it. Pay respect to it, because it will humble you really quickly if you don't. And you'll find yourself stressed out, burned out. But in this world today, I think that it's still important that you give yourself the opportunity to own those businesses, especially in the e-commerce space. Because I think I just read somewhere, it was within the last week, that they said that by 2023, I want to say 21% of all malls will be shut down. And obviously we know that Amazon's looking at a lot of these big spaces to turn their way, but it goes to show you where e-commerce is going.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And even the businesses like JCPenney and those that had to file for bankruptcy, but now they're trying to come back the same way, but stronger on the e-commerce front, because they already still have the brand. So if somebody else goes and buys their company out, they're trying to figure out how they can solve those gaps. Same thing of where was those missed opportunities and how I can get into that. So for a lot of people, when they first really evaluate, what is the time that I have? What are the strengths that I have? And maybe it might not be that you're going to do it all yourself. Maybe that means that you might need to get a partner who's in grad school that can do the logo, that can do the WordPress. And then you say, look, I found the business, right? I got a little bit of credit. I got this, here's what I want you to do, and just be upfront with that. And I think that can help a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I have a question. When's the last time you went to a mall, Casanova? I guess we're in unprecedented times too. But when's the last time you went to a mall?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Actually, it hasn't. The only time I think I ever go to a mall now is for my son. He plays basketball a lot. So his feet's been growing over this last year and a half. So then I go there because I want him to try on the shoes as opposed to buying them and sending them back. But for myself, I haven't. And it's just, you evolve and you understand, but you have to be able to adapt. I think for many of people, they can't adapt, and that's where they get ran over.
Yeah.
And so seeing it right now, it's huge. But we
look at Blockbuster. I think about that, Blockbuster. I was thinking about being a kid, and that was what you did. Friday night, you went to Blockbuster, you picked your movie out and everything. And I was like, damn, that is just obsolete. And they were at the forefront of videos. They had all the contracts and everything. They could have digitized their archive and everything, but nope.
And then when they started to get video games, that was like the best of both worlds. It was like, oh yeah, I could rent the Madden. And now you look at it for Xboxes and think you don't even need to go to GameStop, to Walmart, anywhere anymore. It started to become Best Buy, Walmart, all these other places. Now you can buy your game just from your Xbox or your PS4 or whatever it is. And yeah, you have to figure out a way. Even Netflix, they saw it in the beginning. They were trying to give out those CDs.
Yeah,
Netflix knew what it was. We can't stay here. People ain't going to keep trying to order and wait a week so they could get it in, and I got to send it back, and they say they didn't get it, and now they're going to charge me a fee. No, we got and subscription business.
I can't even think about like when Netflix went, or you could just stream stuff instead of waiting. It seems like it's always been that way, but it hasn't. That's innovation for you, man. And they innovated.
Yeah, you could get two DVDs, and you get this, and then so it's crazy to see, and what's really crazy to see is where we're going to in the next 5 years with Tesla having autonomous semis and things like that. Because then for people, and I just read that as well, that they said by I think it's 2024 they expect 3 million truck drivers to be out of business. And so now for me, if I'm a truck driver, that's how I make my living. And especially if I'm not 65 to 70 years old and I want to keep doing this for the next 10 to 15 years, now I think that I'm saving all of my money so I can start investing into one of these. So then it doesn't take me out. Because now it's just going to be about who owns the trucks. People start to get in the space with Tesla and how do you own the trucks? And then most likely then it's less liability, so you can cut costs down. So then you could go undercut the market in terms of going to whatever big box store and saying we could ship your stuff. It's going to be really crazy to see. But I think that the e-commerce world, at least for the next 25 to 30 years, it's not going anywhere. So you better figure out a way to get with it, or otherwise there's no ownership. So you'll get rolled over.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to get, as we've seen, you will get rolled. You will get rolled. And no matter how big you are, you can get rolled. You can get rolled on.
Oh, yeah. And so the last question I have, and this is just out of my own curiosity, is most of your income, you don't have to say the number, but most of your income comes from the MyFab Finance?
Yeah, everything on Club Loofah right now, we reinvest back in the Club Loofah.
Got it. Now, do you sell courses? Do you have a membership, or or is it surely just advertising by the amount of visitors that you have come to your site? For somebody that's looking maybe to start a blog right now, I'll ask it in the simplest form. Is it still lucrative to start a blog right now? And two, if I say, okay, I have something I want to talk about, but how do I even make money from my blog?
Yeah, it's lucrative to start a brand. I don't know about a blog. Most of MyFab Finance's revenue, and I was very intentional when I set this up. I said, I want to create a business where I'm taking big money from the large companies so that I am able to offer my courses at a discounted rate. But I will always offer my courses at a specific rate because I need people to buy into themselves. I need people to buy into their success. Like you will free yourself to death, but when you pay for something, you value it a little more. So that I always knew I wanted to charge, but I didn't want to hit people over the head or be charging like $99 for a course they couldn't afford. So most of MyFab Finance's revenue comes from our brand partnerships. And right now, like we're anteing up on brand partnerships. Like right now we have $100,000 deal on the table and so forth with a brand. But usually our brand deals are around like $25,000 to $60,000 when we work with a brand.
And for how long are you working with them?
Sometimes it does include exclusivity. The one that we're looking at, 100K, that's 6 months exclusivity. Sometimes we're looking at 3 months, sometimes just a one-time partnership. But that exclusivity just means we can't work with anyone else in their space. Doesn't mean we're still doing the work. And so usually they might ask for like two Instagram posts, an Instagram story, a blog post for $30,000. And they'll just say, please don't work with anybody else in our space.
Is that a month, a week?
No, that's just for that one-time project. For that project, that's a statement of work for that one-time project. Wow. So then once we've done that project, then we'll just move on. Or sometimes they'll come back. I have a project that I did last year with a company, and they came back this year and we're working on another project. I had a project that I worked on in July with a company, and they came back and working on another one for this month, September. So sometimes, depending on the nature of the work, and like they'll come back. But yeah, and then speaking engagements is also a large revenue stream, but I decided I wanted to scale back on that because I didn't mind traveling and everything while I was pregnant and up before I had Karis. But then when I had him, I didn't want to leave him. So I didn't want to be traveling like I remember the year I was pregnant with Karis, I traveled in July. I was home in LA maybe 8 days out the entire month. I was on the road the rest of those days. And I didn't want like that as Karis. When I had Karis, I said, no, we can't do that anymore. So speaking engagements is off the table. Blogging, it's if you have an established blog, it's easier to make money, but now they're really paying for like your social media presence. They're paying for your TikTok. They're paying for access to your TikTok, your Reel, your YouTube, and so forth, your newsletter, and so forth. So you can build a strong educational based business without having a blog now. I have so many deals that don't include a blog post in it anymore. Before that was a standard. And so, yeah, a lot of money comes with brand partnerships. We just finished one with Grubhub. And there's a variety of ways you can spin your content. And that also is important to understand is you got to be creative as an entrepreneur. What angle can I address this with my audience that you might not have thought about? So like we just work with Cricket Wireless. We just work with Grubhub. We just work with, I did something with Bank of America, did something with an infant formula company. So they're just, and those all don't have exclusivity with one another. Like I can work with each of them because they're not in each other's industries. And so that's how we make money. And then the book, The Money Manual, still makes money. The Money Manual still is performing exceptionally well on Amazon. Honestly, I think that it's almost 3 years old now. I think that in its third year is performing better than it was in its second year. Wow. And that's beautiful to see. And then we do have courses and we do have the Blue Ribbon Club. I don't aggressively push the Blue Ribbon Club because there's some things that it is functional and it does what it's supposed to do and so forth. But there's still some tweaks I want to make, but it still is a great course. And it's $27 a month. So we do have the Blue Ribbon Club that people enter through our funnel. So it's a combination of things. It's a combination, but I think that for anybody who's looking to start, think about creative ways that you can work with brands, where brands are putting their money at, and different ways that you can bring in money, monetizing your skills, whether that is writing, whether that is creating a course or something of that nature, writing a book or something of that, or a digital product or something like that you can sell, and continuing to build your audience, because it's not build it and they will come anymore. People have too many options. So you got to figure out how to make people buy from you.
Got it. There's so much in there. And the first thing that I'm wondering, because I know someone else that's listening or watching this is wondering, is how do you even start to create brand partnerships? Because a lot of people, they say, oh man, I have a little bit of an audience, but I haven't started to go into the B2B world and I've never created a brand partnership, especially me thinking of somebody that's like a Grubhub or that's somebody that's Cricket Wireless. These are national companies. Does that look like in the beginning when you were first starting out, did that look like you had to reach out to these people? Or did that look like it was one of your friends, like that was your friend Tours gave you the introduction, so it was relationship based? What did that look like?
So here's the thing about brand partnerships, understanding with a brand, a lot of times they don't do their own work in-house. They don't do their own marketing and PR work in-house. So a lot of times what you're going to find is you can reach out to a brand and they've hired a PR agency or some type of agency to represent their interests. So you want to find out if there's a brand that you're interested in working with, you want to find out who their agency is that they're working with. And sometimes, like if it's a large enough company like a State Farm, they might have like 3 or 4 different agencies they work with and still do some stuff in-house. And so you want to do your research. One of the easiest ways to do that is look at press releases. Look at recent press releases of the company and who issued it, because who issued it likely is who's doing their PR across the board and their influencer relations. And then I will highly recommend taking Maddie James' Get Paid course on people who want to establish brand partnerships. I purchased it myself because I'm pivoting into doing brand partnerships in my personal space. And with My Fat Finance, brands started coming to us. But now I'm in a position where, no, I want to pitch brands. I want to reach out to brands and so forth. So I'm taking Maddie James' course just to learn like different ways to reach out to brands. Because with My Fat Finance, just things like you make enough noise, like I always said, I want to be undeniable. With My Fat Finance, I wanted to build something that was undeniable. Like you would feel crazy if you didn't work with us because we're that connected to our audience and we just do this. Right. And I was able to build that with My Fat Finance. But now here I am like restarting with my personal brand and everything. And I'm like, okay, but how do I not have to wait until I have 60K? How do I start making this money at 30K? Because people are making this money at like 20 and 10K. So how do I do that? So I'm learning more and working with a coach in that space, but look to see who the agency is, slide in the DMs, ask them, I'm interested in collaborating with you and collaborating with your brand. Who should I reach out to? What's the appropriate email to reach out to? And just a word of advice before that, make sure your stuff is tight. Make sure that when people go to your bio, like it makes sense to them why they would work with you. It makes sense. Because brands are always thinking about liability. So if they go to your bio and it seems like you just don't want to come off as liable, like maybe someone posts a lot of pictures about like conspiracy theories and police brutality, and like not saying that you shouldn't. I'm always saying be authentic to yourself, but sometimes you can mess your money up doing that too. So you got to put yourself in the position of a brand. As if I was a brand, would I give them money and would they not be a liability to me? So look at your platforms and look at it that way. And then make sure you have your email. If you feel like I am that, like I'm Oprah, find me, I'm ready, come work with me, then make sure you have your email in your bio so they can easily reach out to you. They don't got to do research or go to your website or anything. They can literally scroll on Instagram, like copy paste, let me reach out to them right now. So make it easy for them to connect with you. Don't put them through the hoops. So I could talk on and on and on about that. But
yeah, no, I'm loving it. I'm sure somebody else is too. I got to get with her. She got all of the nuggets.
But Maddie does this. Like I be looking, just following her on Instagram is valuable. I be looking at her Instagram content like, oh, this is good. Like I've been doing this for 5 years and I learned something just now. This is good. So I definitely, anyone who wants to get money from brands, follow her because she definitely will teach you how to get money from brands.
Got it. Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it. But this has been such a phenomenal conversation. And I want to be the first one to kick off the thank you train. You've dropped so much nuggets and wisdom. The last thing I want to ask you is there's somebody out there that is very excited. They're very inspired. They love the journey that you've blazed and they want to blaze a similar journey to something that you've already done. But they have that little voice in their head. And that little voice says that they're not smart enough, they're not strong enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. Hard to believe after all of the resources and wisdom you've just given, but maybe they still do have that thought. What's the one thing that you would say to that person to get them to just take action?
That I had that voice too when I got started. And a lot of people have that voice when they get started. So you're not alone in that space. You're not an anomaly. People just do it anyway. And that's the thing, is just like, just try. Just try. I know that voice is scary and that voice is loud and everything, but once you start trying, that voice gets quiet and the voice might pop back up, but keep trying and just get started and start building momentum because you're not the first person who's had that voice. We all have it and we've just worked with it and worked through it. And that's what makes the difference from, I think, someone who ends up being successful and someone who just sits on their dream. It's the person who's successful decided to work through it and work with it instead of allowing it to work against them.
There you have it. For anybody who wants to stay connected with you, where can they find you at?
They can find me on Instagram at Tonya.Rapley. And actually, when you go that, Tonya, Tonya, not A, Tonya.Rapley. And then there I have My Fat Finance and Club Loofah in my bio because I make it easy for you to find me.
Yes. I love it. I love it. We'll definitely put all of those links in the show notes. But again, I just want to say thank you for coming on here. Remember, DreamNation, in the dream we trust. But just as she said, you have to just do it. Just try anyway, because otherwise that dream will only merely be a fantasy. That's all for this one. We'll catch you on the next one. That's all we got for this episode. Thank you for sticking around. That truly means a lot to me, and hopefully that means that we delivered massive value on this one. If you haven't already, the way that you could say thank you to myself and the team is just by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review and a rating. That's what iTunes loves to see. That's how we get out there even more. And I would definitely be grateful for it. I know the team would as well. Do me a favor and head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com. That's where you're going to be able to find all of the resources that we talked about in today's episode, as well as more exclusive content. And you'll also be able to sign up to our email list where we have more exclusive content. And we always love to hear the feedback from you all because you're our tribe. So remember, in the dream we trust, we'll see you on the flip side.